My good friend Rory Vaden, who I'm sure you guys know, runs the Brand Builders Group, which I think is the best personal branding academy in the world. He has a saying that I will replicate here. Your ideal audience is the person that you used to be, not the person you are now.
They're speakers, authors, and real-life rock stars, bringing you life-changing thoughts that rock, taking conversation all the way to 11.
Most shows only go to 10.
Well, it's one louder, isn't it? These go to 11.
This is Thoughts That Rock. Now, here are your hosts, Jim Knight and Brant Menswar.
That's us. What is happening?
What's up?
Your favorite podcast.
It's mine. Somebody has found all the bells and whistles.
Is that not what I should have used for the sound effect after I said your favorite?
Every single time.
Every time.
Everything I say.
Just kidding. It is your favorite podcast. Thoughts That Rock.
Oh, my. This is going to be a problem for us.
Listen, we always try to bring you some nuggets of wisdom, help you tackle current issues and struggles you might be going through in this how-to podcast that we host. And today we got a good one.
It's awesome. Yeah. And actually, it's, I would like to say it was pure fun, but it is educational as well. I mean, we decided to come up with a topic. I don't think we should say we came up with it. It was already something that our guest has been working on. But how do you turn your passion into a business?
Yes.
And a lot of people, probably won't know this, but at least if you've heard of Baer, and I'll talk about him in just a second, he's a tequila sommelier, which who knew?
Spell that word.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I had to look it up in the dictionary trying to put it in the show notes. I didn't even know there was such a thing, but he literally is getting to the point as he has this little side hustle, this hobby, this thing that he just loves. And I think it's going to become a real money-making business at some point. So it's kind of a cool topic, right?
It's unfair that someone who has been as successful as he
already
in every friggin' thing he's ever touched decides now that, he's enjoyed and loved tequila since he was just out of college.
It isn't like it just started.
No, it wasn't like he woke up yesterday and was like, I'm going to be a tequila sommelier, or whatever that is. He's a tequila expert now. And honestly, we were laughing because he's enjoyed and is getting recognized more for being tequila J than
actually all the other stuff that
his Hall of Fame career and everything else he's done.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Fame speaker, really an expert when he goes out to speak on customer experience, customer service, marketing.
Yep.
If you've ever seen Jay, his whole deal, he's got a personal brand that's all plaid. He's a lover and a wearer of everything plaid. But the guy has got 6 New York Times bestsellers, which just, one. We would just like to have one would be great. Thank you very much. But he's got 6 of those. He's a 7th generation.
We're Palatka Times bestsellers.
not plaid, but Palatka, Florida.
Yes, exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that.
The goats love our books.
They love me in Amarillo, Texas. That's all I've got to say. But he's a 7th generation also entrepreneur with his family.
Yep.
He's also the founder of 5 multi-million-dollar companies. Yep. Most of those he has sold. The guy is just phenomenal. And I think in the land of our orbit, the speaker business, everybody knows and really appreciates all the work that Jay does. He's actually a part of Michelle Joyce Speakers in her stable. So we were just so thankful that he could come on here and talk about. I know we talk a lot about tequila on this thing, but really I think anybody listening, if you've got a passion, you can actually make some money and do that for a living. So I think there were some really cool nuggets in this thing.
Yeah, you're going to love it. Check out this conversation we have with Jay.
Boom. There he is. Baer is in the house. He's in his house.
We could be in the same house. It's possible.
We could be. We'd be in different rooms. We have different backgrounds, so I don't know how that would work.
True. That's true.
We were just talking before we jumped on. If we were able to zoom out, you would have tequila all over the place. So
It's true.
It-
Anything that's not immediately in the camera is tequila. The biggest problem with being a tequila educator is shelving.
Yes.
It's true.
And if we hadn't have set it up and talked about you being this aficionado of tequila, people would be wondering why in the world does he collect tequila, or does Jay have a problem? One of the two. We're not sure yet.
Both can be true. It's not.
That's right.
Yes, and. And we also mentioned in the beginning here, Jay is one of my fellow speakers with Michelle Joyce Speakers. He's in the stable.
Ooh.
Jay's really the workhorse. Like, we're all just sort of trying to catch that, take that pebble out of the
pack
can.
animal.
How those coattails,
Yes.
Jay?
And I will.
Tattered.
As long as I can ride those coattails, I will.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This is great.
That's right.
So, man, we are just so thrilled that you're here. And again, I think it's a very interesting concept. You know, we're always trying to solve issues and problems, and today is a little bit more on the lighter side. But there are people that are going to have some questions for sure, specifically around how do you turn your passion, the things that you love to do, into an actual business, perhaps where you can make a living doing it. So I couldn't think of anybody better to do that. And Brant and I talked about it and said, let's get him on the show, and you're here, man. So tell us, what is your first thought that rocks on how to turn your passion into a business?
Well, I think first, this isn't my official thought, but my pre-thought to the first
Pre-thought.
thought is actually giving yourself permission to do it, right? I mean, everybody thinks that to say, oh, well, I love whatever roses or I love baseball cards, or I love tequila in my case, but that could never possibly be a business. Not true. Like, we are in an era where every micro interest can be a business. You probably both are familiar with or friends with Pat Flynn, who is an incredible B2B leader, author, and his YouTube Pokemon channel is now bigger than his actual, like, Pat Flynn channel,
Yes.
right? Pokemon cards, right? You think being a tequila educator is a niche play. He's a Pokemon expert, right? So my pre-thought to my first thought is first giving yourself permission that it can in fact be a business. Because I think in business, we tend to feel like, oh, well, that's just kid stuff. That's not a quote unquote real business. I can't actually do that. That's flighty, or, you know, that's just like a fantasy. Not true. So you can make a business out of anything.
Yeah.
My actual first thought is this. Once you decide to give yourself permission to do it, you have to evolve it gradually. The big mistake that people make is they try and do it as a light switch. They say, okay, today it's a passion, tomorrow it's a business, right? I grew up in a relatively small town, and we had 1 million sub shops. Because people would be like, I love making sandwiches. Tomorrow I'm going to open up a restaurant that makes sandwiches. And they all fail.
Yeah.
Because you can't, like, one day be like a sandwich fan and the next day be a sandwich purveyor overnight. It doesn't work like that. So if you wake up and say, starting Monday, baby, this is going to be a business, trust me, you're going to fail. First, because you're going to suck all the fun out of it. And second, it's just not, doesn't work like that. So you have to say, I would like to explore the premise of my passion being a commercial entity. But you got to give yourself like 6, 12, 18, 24 months to make that transition, right? So you've got to do less of your real job and more of your passion, or do your passion more consistently nights and weekends or whatever. You got to play both games for a while. And I'm still very much playing both games, but you have to evolve gradually. It will give yourself the psychological safety to do that. Your audience will like it a lot better. It's just a way better approach. That's my first thought.
Love it. And Brant, I think you, it's funny because we obviously, for Jay, we're going to talk a little bit about his tequila business because that's the passion that he's turning into a business. But we've talked about this even with Black Sheep. I mean, with the speaking and the books and some of the things you're doing, I joke when I look at the website and some of the things that you created, Brant, there's a clothing line out there. And now with AI, you're creating all kinds of stuff. I go, it's possible. It's like Seinfeld. He's going to create something out of nothing, really, on a clothing line, which could quite possibly take over your entire business. And really, it's still in the same vein. It's just that tends to be your passion. You get creative on things like, whatever, tchotchkes, clothing, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. To Jay's point, it is something that, you find yourself with a cool logo and you want to stick it on everything, but then you're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't stick it on everything. And so then you got to be a little smarter. And then you got to think about the brand and what is that supposed to be, and the message. And if we're if being a black sheep is about being unique and your one of a kind self, then maybe the products and stuff that you do should be in that vein, right? And so it's fun to create as a creator, but not everything is meant for consumption. And that's the real challenge, I think. And so, we're looking at with the Black Sheep brand, can we partner with a watch company and do a limited run of watches with our buddies at Original Grain, where it's a limited production. We'll see how it goes. If it goes well, then maybe we'll do something bigger. Right. Same thing along with clothing lines. We've had this conversation with B Swanky, and could we do a Black Sheep handbag for women that is high end. It's $3,000, it's $5,000. It's something that is handmade with a different market, a different target, that's not meant for mass consumption. It's meant for one of a kind. And so that is all part of the thing. But I think you're right, because my first initial reaction is, oh, let's stick this on, water tumblers and on koozies and everything possible. When in fact, maybe that's not the approach that will make it a successful commercial business. And that's hard. And Jay, I'm curious, especially in the tequila business, because it seems like in the last few years, everybody and their mother has come out with a tequila brand that has any sort of social presence. Is it something that you sort of decide, we're not going for your weekend tequila drinker, we're going for your $300 a bottle tequila drinker that is a much different market with a much different expectation? How do you approach that to know what's right? Is it mass consumption, or is it little tiny niche within the area?
Yeah, it's a really interesting state of affairs. Just to frame that up for you, contextualize it, there's about 2,200 tequila brands, 250 new ones in 2022 alone, another 80 in the first quarter of 2023. So the train is not slowing in terms of building out new brands. Now, the overwhelming majority of those brands are just buying tequila that's already in a tank at a distillery in Mexico. They're slapping a label on it. It happens in the bourbon business as well. But you're exactly right, Brant. There's sort of essentially there's kind of three categories of new tequila brands. You have the, hey, we want to be kind of the next Casamigos, is what you hear all the time, which is a fool's errand, because there's only one of those and it's only going to happen once. And they had George Clooney, and you probably don't. But there's a lot of that. We want to be the number one tequila in the world. Now, there are some people who are kind of trodden that path successfully. The Rock has a tequila called Terramana, Dwayne Johnson, which is incredibly fast selling. Even Kendall Jenner's terrible tequila 818 is selling very strong. So that celebrity horsepower really helps. So there's some people who want to kind of play that game. Then you have as you said, kind of the daily drinker. Hey, we want to try and sell a lot of tequila. We want to be in grocery stores. We want to be kind of everywhere. And we're going to play kind of a volume game. What I see more often now is what you alluded to, kind of what's called the super premium, almost club tequila, where they're not really even thinking they're going to sell a lot in retail. It's more they're going to sell it on premise. So you're at the nightclub in Vegas, you're at the nightclub in Miami, you're at the nightclub in Scottsdale, and you look on the top shelf and you see this very, very tall bottle, and that's the one that you want. Is for bottle service and things like that, and it's going to retail for $300, et cetera. That is definitely a market. All of those tequilas don't taste like tequila because they're full of artificial flavorings, artificial colorings, et cetera. But there is definitely a market there as well. And so now people kind of have to pick a camp and sort of proceed accordingly. But it is a dangerous game to play. The preponderance, overwhelming majority of new tequila brands do not make any money. In fact, most lose all their money. One of my good friends is an importer, and he said, don't start a tequila brand unless you have $3 million you're willing to light on fire. And people always ask me, when are you going to start your brand, Jay? I'm like, not anytime soon.
That's right.
Yes.
Not anytime soon.
Is when you talk about though evolving this gradually, and again, I don't know how long you've been doing it. It was actually less than a year ago.
Just a year, yeah.
A year ago. So at that dinner that we were in Nashville together, I remember you saying, I've decided I'm gonna, or maybe you just become a tequila sommelier.
I just passed my certifications then, and I just started making videos. So my first video ever was late April 2022.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is, I know it's a long journey then for you, but in the era where you, like, if you listen to your friend here and you've got to have $3 million where you know that the majority are one going to fail or lose their tail financially, how do you then slow walk it in such a way that you go, I'm going to make this thing successful? It's still a passion for you. You'd probably do it on the side anyway, right? But if you're going to make money at it, how do you think through that? That is really...
there's a lot of other ways to make money other than having a brand, right? So I mean, this is not my official second point. This is my pre-point. This is my precursor to my second point.
Brant, he's bringing in 5 thoughts. You see how he is?
I get it. I see how he sneaks in a couple more thoughts.
I've only done 1,000 podcasts.
We're one of many.
This is my thought 1.5 is, you got to have multiple revenue streams, right? If the only way you think you turn your passion into a business is to start a tequila brand. No, you're not. So, like, we've got a lot of revenue streams already, right? So we've got live tastings, we have sponsorship dollars, we have affiliate program, we have merch, we have an event business that we're spinning up. So you can come to Mexico with me and I'll take you around, those kind of things, right? I've got a consulting business where I'm helping new brands with flavor profiles, marketing, and narrative. So it's like 6 revenue streams without having a tequila brand, right? So that's the way you got to do it, right? It's, if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to take my passion and turn it into a business, you've got to find 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways where you can make a little money. If you're all like, oh, Hail Mary pass, and we're going to take my passion and turn it into, some monolithic giant machine, you're probably going to fail.
Yeah.
Probably going to fail. Right. So multiple revenue streams is thought 1.5.
Well, listen, I know you've done hundreds of podcasts, but just to make sure that we're a little bit different.
Only two about this though.
Yeah. And you've probably never had co-hosts where one's a non-drinker and the other one's allergic to alcohol. So there you go.
I tell you what, that's why we're not doing a tasting on the show.
That's right. Or we totally would have. All right, my friend. I love it. Love it already. What is your second, or I don't know where we are now. It could be
my official second thought. Yes.
Which is that?
Is to understand your actual audience. One of the mistakes that people make when they try and turn their passion into their business is they think that they are their audience. They go at it from the perspective of their own interest and enthusiasm for the topic. The reality is that if it's your passion, you undoubtedly know a whole bunch about this. And most people don't. Most people don't. So let me do the math for you on this. In the United States, there are 40 million people a month who have at least one cocktail per month that includes tequila. Now, the preponderance of those cocktails are margaritas, no surprise, but there's other cocktails out there, palomas, ranch waters, etc. And then some people drink tequila neat. 40 million people, that's your total addressable audience. In the tequila world, there is a mobile app called Tequila Matchmaker, which allows you to rank and review tequilas. It's similar to, you might be familiar with Vivino in the wine industry, or Untapped for craft beer, works the same way. There are 250,000 downloads of Tequila Matchmaker ever. So let's think that through. 40 million people, 250,000 downloads of the app.
Total.
That's the enthusiasts, the true nerds.
Yeah.
So the true nerds is 250,000 people. The addressable audience is 40 million people. Which should be your audience?
Yeah.
The 40 million, right? And so my good friend Rory Vaden, who I'm sure you guys know, runs the Brand Builders Group, which I think is the best personal branding academy in the world. He has a saying that I will replicate here. Your ideal audience is the person that you used to be, not the person you are now. If I was making tequila content at the level that I know about tequila, that is a very small nerd audience. So what I try to do is make tequila content for people who know just a little bit about tequila, because there's a lot more of them. When you turn your passion to a business, you run the risk of being impeded by the curse of your own knowledge. And you overshoot the head of the audience, right? So colloquially, you got to dumb it down and keep it dumb because there's a lot more of those people. That's the actual bulk of the audience. When I started doing this, I did a bunch of competitive analysis because, hashtag entrepreneur. And I discovered that there's a number of other tequila educators who did this before I did. But overwhelmingly, it was nerds talking to nerds.
Yes.
And that's cool. I love that content. I love it. But there's not very many people interested in that. Mathematically speaking. And so you just have to understand who your actual audience is. That's my second thought.
I love that. So, I, like you have a passion for tequila. I have a passion for coffee. And so, James Hoffman, I don't know if you're familiar with James, but he is of course like the coffee aficionado. And I love that that's sort of, he can get in and get really picky about the beans and all of the things that are necessary to make the perfect espresso and all that sort of stuff. But he also addresses the instant coffees that people are going in to buy and, all of those same things that the bigger, larger market is actually looking at. So I see 100% that it does matter, I think, on both of those. In fact, we were just before we recorded this, we were doing another one of these, how to be paid as a speaker podcast. And one of the things we talked about is this idea of curse of knowledge when you're creating your session synopsises, right? Like you're the expert, you know everything about it. But to your point, you sort of have to address it like you don't know anything about it, or at least minimal, so that it resonates with the larger crowd and not just with the 5 behavioral science nerds who are going to get what you're talking about and why they need to hire you. That is a huge, do you find that that's, I would assume just even with you and your background in marketing and everything, you see that that's got to be a pretty common mistake made by new brands.
For sure.
I would assume.
Massively
right?
So. Very, very common. And the other mistake I see people make, and this is more procedural, is they don't find a way to build audience and community off platform. Like so much tequila education right now is either Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, all three of which are uniformly terrible for community building. So what I do is I publish a lot of lists. So top tequila brands, top celebrity brands, top Blancos, top Reposados. We got a new one coming out that's top Mexican owned brands. But in order to get those lists, you have to give me your email address. So I have a list of 30,000 people who are super into this, and I can sell them tequila, t-shirts, whatever, that. But if I was just hoping that the Instagram algorithm would show them my post, you can't sell stuff based on hope, right? So the old saying of you can't build a house on rented land remains to be true, and so one of the things that being in digital marketing for 30 years, I'm like, okay, we have to have a list that we control, not a list that I have to rely on Meta or TikTok to be able to activate my fans.
Totally.
I was thinking about this thought in my own world. Like I feel like, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I would claim to say that I'm a original and next generation Trekkie. Some people are going to love that. Some people aren't, but Brant knows from being over.
I thought it was Trekker. Is that not true?
Trekker is what came later. You're not a true fan unless you're a Trekkie. But Trekker's fine. Doesn't matter. I'm very inclusive, Jay. As anybody would know if they come to my house, I actually have a Star Trek office. I have a room where I buy memorabilia, and some of this is from Sotheby's and Christie's, and it's a cool collection. But I was trying to think if I wanted to take that passion and make it a business. I have actually been on Star Trek podcast before, where you talk about the nerds, where maybe their audience is really, really small. And if I thought, geez, I'd like to start a Star Trek podcast, my knowledge, to your point, would be very limited. And people that know me close would know that I like that stuff. I bet you it would take a while for that to take off, because there's probably a ton of sci-fi or Star Trek podcasts, if I'm using that as an example, versus our friend, Brian Fanzo. You think about what he's done with NFTs. I mean, here's a guy who, really was a speaker more than anything else, and just decided his passion is understanding these, NFTs and that world. And at least for him personally, he'll say, I just wanted to learn more about it, and I'm going to make a commitment to buy one. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to buy one every day, and I'm going to talk about it on a podcast.
every day for a year. And now
Yeah.
he's selling NFTs, he's selling artwork. I mean, at some point, his revenue in that area, if NFT stays where it's going to stay, and that's still debatable as well, he's going to make way more money doing that than he does as a speaker. So I see what you're saying. I just wonder for those that are listening and going, I have this love, I have this passion. Maybe my audience is small, but I ultimately have to broaden it to get to the masses. Is that ultimately what happens over time, or you hope anyway?
I mean, maybe, but we all know from the speaking business, the saying "there's riches in the niches" is a saying for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. So do I think you can't make a money at being a hardcore Trekkie? Nah, I think you probably can.
Yeah.
Can you make money doing something that everybody else is already doing? Well, no, but you're smarter than that, right? If they're doing podcasts and those podcasts already exist, well, then you do something different, right? You do a blog, or you do a YouTube channel where each episode you actually watch, or each episode of your show, you watch an episode of Star Trek, and then you have a commentary side by side, split screen, right? Like a Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's a live commentary on the episode from Jim Knight in real time, or whatever, right? So sometimes when you look at the competitive circle, sometimes you say, all right, we're going to go for the bigger audience, which is the less knowledgeable audience. But sometimes we're going to go for the same audience, but in a different format, right? Or we're going to go for the same audience, but in a different frequency, right? So you think about, think about JLD, right? Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Yeah.
He was one of the first people ever to do a daily business podcast.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, he's really good at it anyway, but being one of the first ones to do it every day, that kind of steady drip certainly helped him build his audience, and nobody else was doing that then.
Yeah.
I was one of the first ones ever to do a daily video podcast called Jay Today. Did it years and years ago. I was one of the first ones in the whole world to do it. And it was super successful because no one else could keep up, right? They just couldn't make that much content.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's not about necessarily the level of the audience. It's like, well, let's just do what they're doing, but in a different format, or more or less often, etc.
That's great advice. That's awesome. Great, man. All right. Give us your fifth or sixth thought that rocks.
my third official thought that rocks, but probably my sixth unofficial thought
yes.
that modestly rocks is you just got to add value everywhere. And this is not earth shattering, other than the fact that I wrote the book Utility more than 10 years ago, which is all about helping, not selling. And it's actually more true and more vital today than it was when I wrote it, ironically. And it's really what I've tried to do in this tequila business. Now, it's nice to not have to rely on this revenue, right? I'm not paying my mortgage with tequila income. Someday I may, but I'm not now.
Yeah.
And so that's a luxury, and I want to make sure I admit that privilege. However, I'm also very cognizant of the fact that if you try to squeeze everybody for money now, you're not going to be able to squeeze people for money later. So wherever possible, my answer is always yes. Can you do a live tasting? Yes. Will you do it for free? Yes. I spend, I'm not kidding, an hour to 2 hours a night, every single night, just answering DMs from people about tequila. I'm at a restaurant.
Wow.
People take pictures of the menu and they DM it to me saying, you'll probably never even see this. And then I go and I'm like, get the Siete Leguas Blanco. And I send them a DM back in 4 seconds. And they're like, I can't believe you saw it. I can't believe you looked at it. I can't believe you answered. But here's the thing. That person will never unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Every time you over deliver like that, you have that person for life. And it requires a commitment to truly serving the audience, not serving the audience so that they will serve you, but serving the audience, recognizing that some of those people will never give you money, but you got to be okay with that. Right. The problem with people, and this kind of circles back to my first thought, the problem with people who try and turn their passion into a business is that they're not willing to play the long game.
Yeah.
Usually they're undercapitalized and they're under timelined, right? You've got to say, look, I'm going to build this into a business over a period of time. And the way I do that is by over delivering value without expectation of revenue as long as possible, right? Gary Vaynerchuk said it best in the title, jab, 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 right hook, right? Yeah. You gotta hold back on that right hook as long as you possibly can. Now, that being said, we're just launched a merch store where you can buy t-shirts and hats and glasses and flasks and pins. But here's the thing that I'll never admit anywhere else other than the show. It's all it cost. We're literally making 0 cents on any merch.
Wow.
because I would rather get the merch out there than make $3 on a t-shirt. Making $3 on a t-shirt is not going to have a material impact on my life. I would rather sell more shirts.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I love that. Well, again, there's the adding value, right? And you're doing it in a way that builds the brand through the people who want to be a part of it, right? They are part of the community. You have over delivered, and they have said, "I want to be a part of this," and they become that, megaphone that shouts you from the rooftops to say, "Oh, have you heard of this? You've got to check this out. You've got to go here. They're the only place I go to learn about tequila." It becomes this point of, we were talking about it the other day with Vin Jang, talking about connection points, right? And if you become a part of their story, it makes their story more interesting. And then they start to use that as a point of connection. Right. And so when people who love tequila start to bring you into the conversation because they got a cool hat, a t-shirt, a flask, whatever it might be, then all of a sudden you're part of that conversation, and you've earned the right to be there. And that's the difference between shoving things down, trying to make a buck because, you want to be an Amazon quick shipper.
Yeah, right.
That is not the same game plan.
Can I tell you one of the worst things about turning your passion to a brand or business?
Yeah.
Sometimes you realize that maybe you've wasted your whole life. I have been a marketing customer experience author, expert, influencer, advisor for 30 years, have written 7 books on the topic, have achieved some level of notoriety. And I get recognized in airports now all the time.
For the tequila.
But only for tequila. And I keep thinking to myself, bro, if you would have started this tequila thing 20 years ago, you'd have a TV show by now, right? And instead,
or it would have never happened. You had to have had that stepping stone to get to where you are.
You're right. It's just I just laugh. My conclusion is this: people like tequila more than they like building their business, and I have anecdotal evidence that is the case for sure.
So, just out of curiosity, Jay, what got you? Like, what was the switch all of a sudden to tequila? I mean, listen, you've been, uber successful in everything you've touched, and are literally a legend in our business. What was it about tequila that all of a sudden you were like, this is the direction I want?
It wasn't all of a sudden at all. So I am from Arizona, so there's certainly a geographical kind of basis for it. I went to school in Tucson, which is only 45 minutes from the border. And when I was in my, let me do some math on this, late 20s, before I had kids, I would go every Wednesday to a bar, restaurant in Scottsdale called Los Sombreros. It's still there. And my good friend Tom Brecky and I would go on Wednesdays, and we sit at the bar. There's a bartender there, Steve. And Steve was super duper early into, this is like late 90s, into the mezcal movement. Right. This is late 90s, so way early. And we would just go to church, man. Like, Reverend Steve, pour us something and tell us a story about how this is made. And we just got like sucked into the rabbit hole and just thought it was fascinating and so interesting and so many different flavor profiles and the romance of Mexico. And then I started to go to Mexico a lot for business, for pleasure, and spent more time learning about tequila. And then, and like any other passion or hobby, you just kind of over time, read more, learn more, and started visiting distilleries and all those kind of things. And when I sold my business a couple of years ago and stopped recording my podcast, Social Pros, after 530 episodes or something, I said, hey, I should take the time I used to spend on the podcast. Maybe what if I just started to teach people some of the things that I've learned about tequila? And that was literally it. That was the entire, business model. Like, what if I just tried to teach people some things, made a video, made another video, and here I am wasting your time on your show. So, be careful what you wish for.
This is going to be a part of the story in your next book, for sure.
Yeah,
right.
It really is but I do love it. I find it really fascinating. The business angle is really interesting too. The tequila market, of course, is exploding in popularity, but it's very, very competitive, as we talked about earlier. So there's enough kind of business pieces to it that keeps me interested. So it's not just, drinking and hanging out doing tequila, but yeah, it's been fun. We'll see where it goes, but it's already, to say that it has exceeded my wildest expectations is the understatement of the year. Now it really is a thing.
It's awesome. Here's my big final question for you. When Jay Baer creates his own tequila brand, and it's going to happen, is it going to be like, does it come in like a plaid sheath, like a Crown Royal of some sort?
Nice. I don't know. Maybe it comes like a bear-shaped bottle. Maybe that's the idea, right? Like a
big honey,
bear,
like a honey bottle.
Yeah, there you go. Like a honey jar. That's a great idea. I like that. That's right. You guys are hired as a branding consultant.
I like the plaid golf pants.
Yes.
You could have, both.
And you got to like unzip it and pour it. It's going to be incredible.
Totally different show. Different show.
Totally.
Man, this was so great. Where, if people want to learn, more about you that are not anywhere near our business, and maybe it's the first time they're getting exposed to really you, or they want to learn about your tequila business, where would you like for us to send them?
So tequila stuff is tequilajbaer.com, tequilajbaer.com. Information about tastings and obviously our digital content and the merch store. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok as well, of course. And then my regular business is jbaer.com. So tequilajbaer.com or jbaer.com. You'll find me either way.
And you'll see it on all of the logoed stuff for the show, but it's BAER.
Exactly.
That's right.
Just make sure. Brother,
I'll tell you a story about that real quick. This just happened yesterday. Okay, so a fan, because we've been talking about the merch a little bit, that it's not ready yet, but as we're recording this, but it's soon. And a fan actually grabbed my picture off the landing page and made himself a Tequila J Baer t-shirt, which was gratifying. But here's the part that blew me away. Misspelled J, but spelled Baer right. Jae, which is unusual. I think that's the Thai spelling of J.
That's right.
Jaebeer. And so I sent it to my assistant, Maddie, who's on the show with me. And she's like, how did he get Baer right, but misspelled J? Like, how is that possible? I'm like, I don't know. But the fact that somebody made a t-shirt unlicensed, we now we got pirate merch out there, which I love.
That's how you know you're
Jay Baer Thai boxing.
That's how you know.
Yeah.
Jay Baer Thai.
Yeah. Muay Thai is the next passion. I'm going to turn into a business. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah.
All right, man. Listen, it's so good to see you. Thank you for spending a little bit of time, man. And I know you've got so many things that are going on in your world. We'll have you back to talk about some other stuff, but this was a pretty interesting topic, man. We love it. It's awesome.
See you soon.
We'll talk to you later.
Appreciate you.
Hey, rock stars. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Yeah, and listen, we know how busy you are, and grabbing those little nuggets of wisdom that can amp up your life are super hard to come by. So we hope this episode helped you enough for you to maybe subscribe and consider leaving us a rating and a review so that we can continue to grow the show.
Thus That Rock is a proud member of the Evergreen Podcast Network and also supports Cannonball Kids Cancer and their fight for finding and funding treatment options for kids who have run out of options. They're amazing. Their work is incredible. To learn more, please go to cannonballkidscancer.org.
Finally, if you're interested in having Brant or Jim or both of us speak at your event, whether as a virtual webinar or an in-person conference keynote or mastermind, contact us directly at thoughtsatrock.com.
Until next time,
Rock on!